Well, we're live again. This is actually our final session. So this was scheduled for last week. Obviously, holidays, things came up. I was not able to make it last week. So if you are around and you'd like to comment or join in, please feel free to do that. So this is how to have, or the ingredients to having, a really great dog. This is the final one in the series. What we're talking about today is expecting problems. Now, this is a new family member. This is a companion dog. Remember, this isn't a farm dog or livestock or a zoo exhibit. This is a dog who's going to be living in your house with you part of the time. And our expectations in our society at the moment are actually very, very high for the behaviour of our companion animals. So things like begging at the table, jumping onto countertops, running off with the garbage, digging holes, doing normal behaviour for a dog, that stuff's not on. So what will happen is, to some degree, if you've already looked at the ingredients, you can prevent a lot of that. One of the very first things you do is you look at what dogs could get up to and make sure that when you bring them home, they just can't do that, at least for the first couple of months. So that's under the heading of management. So what I'm talking about today is when problems crop up. Generally what that means is the management ship has sailed. We haven't prevented that thing from happening. They've practiced it a few times, and we're like, oh no, this thing is going on. Now, what is problem behavior? So let's define that, because it's not a problem for the dog. The dog's fine with it, okay? That's why they're doing it. It's usually very enjoyable for them to do. Or it might not be something that they're enjoying doing. It might be that it's a coping mechanism for something that is bothering them. So they're trying to modify what's happening in their world to suit their needs. So what we're looking at is a problem that you're not happy with it. You need to change your dog's behaviour. So we always circle back to management. How can you prevent this thing from happening? Go back to that step and see what you can do. If your dog has discovered, now that they have grown, that they are big enough to leap up on your countertops and eat your freshly baked whatever it is, that's a massive reward for doing that behaviour, right? They will try that again. And no amount of shouting and carrying on like a pork chop afterwards is going to have any effect, because they already ate it. You know, the jumping up and eating, that's the behaviour and the reward. And you shouting afterwards is just another thing. They might figure out that doing it sneaky style will avoid having you shout at them, but the shouting at isn't going to prevent that behaviour. So again, you're going to be looking at management. How can you prevent that from happening? Probably don't leave food on the countertops for a while. That's going to be human training. The other thing you could do is put up some sort of a fencing system, or corral your dog when they're not being supervised. So they're in a crate, or they're in an exercise pen, or they're outside, or they're on a leash with you around the house. So just some examples there of management. We're not looking at training until the next step, where we're going to go, okay, this is the problem. This is the behaviour that is really bothering me, or maybe it's potentially dangerous, or you think it's going to get worse. Identify exactly what that is and figure out what your dog needs to do instead. This is where your training comes in. You need to make it very, very, very rewarding for them to do that other behaviour, and then start getting them to do that alternative behaviour instead of the problem. So, for example, you can actually teach dogs to ask you for things on kitchen countertops. You have to train it really, really well, and you have to prevent any rewards of jumping up there. And it's a bit of a process. But once it is trained, you're going to have a dog who will come to you and keep bothering you until they've got your attention, at which point you go, oh yes, my husband or my child or whoever, they left a muffin on the countertop and you're asking if you can have it. Sure, let's give you half the muffin. You can eat the other half, so whoever left it on the countertop doesn't do that anymore. Again, that is punishment, so it might not work very well. What you want to do is catch your significant others not leaving. In other words, putting things away. So in that scenario, you again, if you've got more than one person in the household, you might be training more than just the dog. But again, figure out what that dog needs to be doing. If you've got any ideas of behavior problems that you thought you'd be raising the perfect puppy, or you've got this rescue dog home and you're absolutely sure you've got all the bases covered, you've done it before, and they throw you a curveball, what is that problem behavior? What have they done that you're like, oh crap, now what do I do? So be aware that this is new dog stuff. This series is about creating a really great companion dog. This is when you've brought them home for the first time. Later on, you can get this with puppies as they develop, but you can also have things change with adult dogs. In that scenario, always go and check with your vets. A very large amount of problems are caused by discomfort in your dog. They can't come up to you and say, hey, I've got a headache today. They can't say, my left kidney hurts. They can't tell you. Their behavior might change somewhat, but you might not read it as pain. And they might be really subtle about it. They might not show many signs. So getting a checkup whenever there is a significant change in behavior that you're not quite sure where it's come from, get it checked. Pain, as I said, is a massive, massive factor in behavior problems. So do get that checked out. Now, lastly, for those who have encountered curly ones, or for those who need to train something to a high level, I'll give you an example of that in a second. When you've got that sort of situation, I'm going to go back to a previous ingredient, is to have your support people worked out ahead of time. Who are you going to call when this behavior problem crops up? As I said at the beginning, expect a problem, or two, or three, or more. Through the life of your dog, they're going to figure out some interesting things to do that you don't like. Some of them are really easy to solve. Others, you will want to have someone help you. A professional like myself who has encountered a lot of problems with dogs. Well, the dog's not got a problem, but the people have. People have got issues with what their dogs are doing. They've checked it out. It's not a medical issue. It is something that they need to teach the dog to do something else. And if you need support in figuring out how to train that, you're going to want to get help. It could be that your general obedience is lacking and there's some stuff that's slipped or it hasn't been installed in the beginning. That's your foundation training. If that's the case, just going to some general obedience classes might be enough to get you around it. But a lot of the time it's very context specific, so it's happening in your home or it's happening when you are on a walk in a particular situation, and it's much more economical to address that particular scenario. In that case, you need private help. You can do that. There are trainers who will consult privately over the phone or online using video. That can be really a very good way of doing it. And the other alternative is to actually have the trainer come out to your home to help you in that context where your dog's actually doing the behaviour. So, of course, that is going to be more expensive than classes, but be aware that if your dog is making this behavior as a choice and that's rewarding for them, that behavior is going to tend to become more like a stronger thing that they do. The more they practice it, the better they'll get. If it's causing conflict with you and your dog, or conflict between them and other family members, if it's a safety issue, it's really important that you do get that help that you need to address that early. I'll use my analogy of weeds. If you pull that weed when it's little, it pops right out. Even if you don't get all the roots, it might come back again, but it's that big. So your problem's going to be easy to solve when it's just started to grow. If you wait a couple of months, it has taken hold, and it's going to take some excavation to get rid of. This is not going to be a simple project. It's going to take a while, and it will actually cost you a lot more to hire that professional to help you out, because they're going to be working with you for a longer period of time on a behavior problem that is possibly much more serious. So just be aware of that. So one of the things I mentioned was a story about a behavior problem, and this is so I've mentioned the dog jumping up on countertops. That can be an issue, but there's tons of other ones that are actually really, really common, and I've just completely forgotten which example I was going to do. So in the comments, do feel free to leave a comment and say, this is the issue that we're having. This is the problem that my dog has developed. I don't know where it's come from, or I do know where it's come from and I don't know how to fix it. So the example I was going to give is one of those. It will cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars if your dog develops this particular problem. Now, for the dog, initially it's not a problem. It's coping strategy, and it's got a genetic component as well as behavioural. So this is the gulper, particularly the sock gulper. And the thing that they enjoy is having something in their mouth and keeping it for themselves. There's a very strong genetic component. They're possessive. They like their stuff and they don't want anyone else to take it away. And it's also a learning, because some point along the way someone's tried to take something and they have figured out that if they gulp it down real quick, that other person can't get it away from them. So particularly synthetic fibres do not break down in a dog's digestive system, and if they don't barf it up, it will cause a life-threatening blockage. So some dogs will be on their, second, third, fourth sockectomy. Each one's going to cost you thousands of dollars at the vets. And, time, hassle, There is the option of trying to ensure that no one leaves socks out. But if your dog's already developed a love of socks, they will find them. And only one sock is all it takes. And then you're off to the vets. So, the behavioural alternative that you can use to sock gulping is a very, very reliable retrieve. So, and I've seen this done before, where you give them the object that they would normally gulp, but it's too big to swallow, like much, much, much too big to swallow. And you teach them to bring it to you for a very, very high value reward. So they're giving you their prize and getting something prize-worthy in return. That is a very long, drawn-out process. And because you need it to be 100% reliable along the way, that's going to take probably, unless you are a dog trainer, probably going to take a professional to help walk you through and support you along the way. So just one example of, a random thing that you wouldn't think would be that major problem, and it's a life threatener. You might have to have the dog put to sleep, not just because they've got damage because of the blockage. That can damage them badly enough that they can't come back from it. But also, people will actually literally run out of money for sockectomies. And you can't afford to have the dog treated, which is, traumatic. So, like I say, if you've got a problem behaviour, treat it early. Make sure there's not a veterinary, a medical problem that's causing them to do that. Try and change up the environment so they cannot do that behaviour, and then teach them something else. If teaching them something else is difficult or you're not sure how to prevent it, get help early from a really good reward-based dog trainer. So you can always get in touch with me. I am not currently running private sessions or doing in-home consults, but I know people. So I'm always happy to refer people on to good trainers. I want to see you guys succeed in whatever area you're working with your dogs. So if you do want to get in touch with me, you can get me through my Facebook page. It's dogtraininghelp.com.au, and you can give me a ring on 0403164748. If you do want to comment on this live session once it's up as a recording, please do, and feel free to share it with your friends. There's some interesting things that dogs get up to. Please share your behaviour problems. Some of them are like, yeah, what? There's some really silly ones out there, but there are serious ones as well. So, enjoy the rest of your January holidays if you've still got them, and hopefully I'll see you around.